All right, number one, to hear residents' concerns regarding 55 Westin Avenue housing project. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, thank you. If I could, I'd just make a couple of comments and then listen to see what folks have to say. First of all, I had a chance to view the video of the planning board meeting from July the 26th, and I appreciated the concerns that were raised there. And I apologize that I wasn't there to answer some of the questions that could have been answered that night. I understand from the meeting and from other comments and emails that I've exchanged with some folks that there was a bit of frustration where the public felt that those who were really concerned about the project didn't think they were at the right meeting. And so after looking at that video and talking with the chairman, that's why he decided to open it up this opportunity to share more about this. And so in the long run, I think it's a good thing. Just a couple of things. I put together today a timeline of the work that's been done at that site, 55 Westin Avenue, really dating back to 2014 when the school was demolished there. An ice rink was built. It was the intention of the select board all along not to do any permanent development to that site because they wanted to keep it open for something, whether it be housing or whether it be a commercial development. Over the years, we have spent quite a bit of energy trying to look into what type of housing we could develop there. So one thing I'll say is on that sheet, I highlighted a couple of different dates. And those dates that I highlighted came to me as I was going through this process, that these were the times I should have reached out to somebody who lives on John Street, Thomas Street, Westin Avenue, down those areas, because these were the times we were convening groups of people to talk about housing. And if we were going to use Westin Avenue, 55 Westin, as one of those sites, that was the time we should have reached out to the folks that lived there. And that was my oversight. That's my mistake. Many of you have taken a look at some of the meeting minutes over the planning board and the select board, and you realize that this project's been in front of the select board a couple of times, one in executive session, which is very typical if you're talking about economic development projects. If an investor is trying to propose a project to the select board, they don't want anyone else to kind of know until it's finalized. And so that's why under economic development clause, the state allows select boards to talk about projects like this in executive session. But any decisions by the board have to be made publicly. So, and in that public meeting that was held in June, I think it was on June 6th, Mr. Moody asked the question about public input. What's the public feel about this project? And at that time I said they'll have a chance to share their concerns during the planning board session. And again, I'll admit that was a mistake on my part. We should have done more to get your input earlier in the process. So those are my comments. I'll turn it back over to the chair.
All right.
I just have a question.
Okay, just a second. Okay, so just remember, if we're going to be recognized, we need to put our hand up. We'll go through everybody, and we will make sure we get everybody. So, Sam, do you guys have anything, or do you want to wait till we hear some comments, or?
We can open it up to the floor first.
Okay.
We're just here to answer questions, really.
All right, Chris?
Just basically, first question, does it matter if we're concerned? Has it already been done? Are our concerns irrelevant? Is it going to happen anyway? That's my question first and foremost.
And I'll address that. That's an excellent question. I've heard some of that chatter that what difference does it make? It's a done deal.
If it is a done deal, then what difference does it make, right?
Right. So it's not a done deal.
Okay.
In order for this project to be completed, the developers have to get their funding, and we have to close on a deal just like you would with any other real estate transaction. What we have to this point is a purchase and sale agreement, which many of you know if you've done deals like that. It's kind of a promissory note saying the board intends to sell this property to this developer for this price and so forth. That's all we have right now. We need to finalize that.
Are concerns of the residents enough to qualify voiding the deal?
That would be up to the select board. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, thank you. That's my opening question. Somebody else can go and deal with it.
Anybody, any other questions? Comments?
I have comments.
Okay, all right, yes.
I just want to congratulate the town on the forward thinking of this project. Housing is desperately needed. As a realtor, I've met a lot of elderly who are living in homes that they can no longer maintain, but there's no place for them to go. There's no place for them to rent. These are beautiful. This is great for the town. I think this is wonderful.
Craig?
If this is elderly housing, I'm noticing that, I've never seen this picture till just recently. Why the stairs thing? Why wouldn't you keep it down more on a level?
So,
And if you're looking for elderly and handicap accessible,
They're not.
so this is affordable housing, but a piece of that would be if you happen to be elderly and wanted a first floor apartment, then you would have accessibility there. But that's not the primary mix of people who are looking to move into here. We're looking for young professionals in the income range. You know, the people that are moving here to work at Go Labs, the people working at, you know, backyard farms, or, you know, it's not elderly housing primarily.
But just to build on that too, we elevated the buildings to sort of match the character of the neighborhood, where most of the residential buildings are above grade a couple feet. And with the front porches, that creates a situation where neighbors can talk to each other, but if people are on their porch, it's still sort of semi-private. And that it's a great thing that we have from our older neighborhoods, where it just fosters interaction and community engagement and people talking to each other.
how much parking do you have?
But just to your first question though, we also have ramps that will be built to some of the doors so that there will be accessibility as well. So I just wanted to.
What about parking?
Right now, we have 42 spots
Actually,
allocated,
48.
48 spots allocated for this, and that does not include on-street parking, which I know there's been some controversy about on-street parking, but as we showed today when we were parking for the barbecue, we have 3 or 4 cars down the side, and I think Westin Ave would allow for that to not cause any creative congestion. Obviously, wintertime during, you know, plow season, that's not gonna happen. But we use the statistic. Is it 1 point? What's each household in Madison? Is it 1.4 cars? We understand
There's
that.
no such thing as 0.4 of a car. That's 2 cars.
Okay,
Sorry.
we're not gonna interrupt people, please.
sorry.
And if you like to speak, put your
But
hands up.
that's just saying, we've got studios, we've got 1 bedrooms, and we got 2 bedrooms. When you have a statistic, it takes the total number and then divides it by the amount of units. So you could have some 2-car rental units and some 1-car rental units. That's why you come up with 1.4. I understand that I don't sell 0.4 vehicles. But adequate parking, yes.
Yes.
So there's not gonna be any elevators?
No.
Okay. Is there, are these gonna be the only units on those lots? There's no future?
So phase 1, as we're calling it, would be the furthest down Westin Ave, the first two buildings there. That'll be an 8-unit and then a 10-unit. And then buildings 3 and 4 are sitting at where the school used to be, where the town is going to remediate what was buried into the ground using federal grant dollars. That's not going to be coming out of taxpayers' money, taxpayers' pockets. So that'd be 1, 2, and then you see we made a spot for what is called, you know, I consider myself old now, but I know that's not the case. We used to call them playgrounds, it's called green space now. And then if you looked at an overview, the back piece of the lot might contain some townhouses, but not full-size buildings like this.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are you planning on, sorry, are you planning on having like a playground there? I know there was some concern about people having, so how does that work? Is that gonna be open for the community kids to come play? Or, I mean,
That'll
as
be
a
a-
renter, I wouldn't want someone else's kid from the
Right.
neighborhood coming in and scratching my vehicle or something.
Right. Well, it's a discussion we'll probably have to have with the town in terms of where does the liability fall? Do I own the playground? I mean, if we own the playground and it's part of the condo association, obviously our
Right.
renters are gonna want that to be private. But if the town, keeps a certain portion of that, and there's some separation there. But in these renderings, it's showing that we've heard towns' concerns about losing some play space, and we're happy to take account for that.
Yes.
Doing the allocation of the property and the grant money, this looks like a great cash cow. I'm wondering if this might be lucrative enough to maybe you think of a bypass in Skowhegan so that people can get by on more than one route between Route 2 and 201, crossing the bridge.
I feel like there's some comments you've given today about my family, I guess? You were
Not in
talking-
particular, no, it looks wonderful,
It's not in our budget.
No, okay. Just wondering.
I mean, if you want, we brought Mark from Maine Housing here, who's the bank that's in charge of this housing program. So if you have questions about the finance of this or how lucrative it may or may not be, which is may not be.
No, you're very excited about getting the affordable housing for people in the area.
It's not affordable.
Yeah, well, it's,
All right. We got comments, we're gonna make them to me, please.
So I just wanted to welcome Mark from Maine Housing here, if he wanted to speak on the Maine Housing
Mark?
Finance. Can I speak for a second?
Sure.
Yeah,
My name is Mark Wiesendanger. I'm the Director of Development at Maine Housing. This project has not been funded yet. We have received an application for funding and we are looking at it and we're going to consider whether or not it meets our requirements and it's a feasible project. This program that is being used or being applied for is called the Rural Affordable Rental Housing Program. And this program was put together to help rural areas create affordable housing, create more rental housing. The more stock we have, the more rents go down. Throughout, this state is the oldest state in the nation. It's got the oldest housing stock in the nation. We need more housing. Since between 2010 and 2020, we've had exactly the same number of rental units in Madison. Although there are fewer vacancies than there were in 2010. So in other words, there's more demand for apartments here. With these new businesses coming to town, you're going to need more housing here. More stock is a good thing. It drives all rental unit costs down. Again, we have not approved of this. We haven't given the money to the project yet. This does come with equity for the project, but also we're not going to give more equity to this project than it requires. We're going to ask that these people who are going to own this are going to pay for a paying loan. They're going to take on debt in order to make this thing happen too. We're not just going to give them all the money that's required. In return, they have to assure to us that this will be affordable at 80% of area median income or less for the next 45 years. And they can't change that. It has to stay in place. And Maine Housing will be checking up on this property periodically to make sure that it maintains a certain standard of living. It can't be a dump. It has to be pretty nice. And if they aren't doing what we ask of them, that we talk to them and make sure they straighten it out, well, we can ultimately take it away from them if we want. So they're on the hook for 45 years. Just want people to understand that and keep it in mind.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's the penalty if they don't? If it's less than 45 years? Because I know I'd asked the question at the planning board meeting. So what if you decide it's not working out and you want to convert this to Section 8 housing, and there was some mention of some type of fee or penalty that would have to be paid?
So first of all, I should say, Maine Housing stands behind all its properties. We look at this deal really hard, or any deal really hard, to make sure that it's going to work and it's going to last. We make sure that people get paid enough money to keep interest in it, but at the same time, they're not getting rich from it, right? We want the benefit to go to the tenants. And if we see that a property is not working well, oftentimes we'll come in and help out and make sure the property is working. If the landlord isn't doing what they're asked to do, we can put them in default. We have done that before. And if people aren't doing as they said and agreed and signed their name to, that they're going to do, we can take a property away from them. Because we want to ensure that affordability in the long run.
And what would you do with it? Would Maine State Housing manage it? Like, if you ended up
We
taking
could take it
this
and
back?
sell it to somebody else.
And ensure that it would not become Section 8 or,
So I'm not sure, I think Section 8 means a lot of things to a lot of people. I think it's tied to the public housing of the past, which, legitimately got a
in
bad
our
rep.
area, I'm talking like the Meadows or Indian Ridge or Westfront Residence and Skowhegan.
Okay, I'm not familiar with those properties, I don't know what state they're currently in. This property isn't eligible to take Section 8 vouchers, though.
Okay. Even after like.
Well, they could, sorry,
God
let me
forbid, say
rephrase
something
that.
doesn't happen, something happens and they can't keep up their end of the bargain and you take it back. What's the likelihood that you would sell it to somebody and that they would make it that? I think that's what you're asking, right?
Well, that's a different avenue, but yes.
I-
That's a good question.
Anytime we take a property for somebody else, and believe me, it's not very common, it doesn't happen a lot. When it does, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that the property is gonna be viable and work, and that we're not just throwing money at it, and the new owners aren't just throwing money at it, nor that they're getting rich from it. Section 8 vouchers are not a bad thing. These help people pay their rents, and also ensures that the landlord is getting rent every month, right? So Section 8 vouchers are not a bad thing, but this is not a Section 8 project. But there are project-based vouchers, and there are vouchers that people can take from place to place. And this is not a Section 8 project.
And if we were to sell this to someone before that 30-year window, we would basically have to cut a check back to Maine Housing for $3 million.
Yeah, you'd have to pay it all back.
So I don't think
And the new
think
people-
property values are going to go up that high for that number to make sense. So we are handcuffed to this project, and we believe in this project, and that's why we're here.
And if anybody else were to take this over, they'd have to abide by the same rules.
Okay.
It goes with the property.
Okay.
You all set, Mark?
I am, thank you.
Yep. Chris?
Those are beautiful buildings. They're way closer to the road than anything I've ever been allowed to do. But what you're looking at feasibly, right, are 3-4 family homes. But that's not it. That's 50 people that you're looking at right there. At a minimum, probably you're looking at 100 people living there. And that's if they only have a fraction of them have children. I mean, what you're really looking at is you're looking at gambling the entire integrity of that part of Madison for a hope that you're going to be able to rent these out. And I don't care if they're the best people in the world. You put that many people in that small of an area, they're going to be, if you guys want, I don't, whatever. I'm selling the house, right? What I did was I bought 2 houses on this street, and I actually, with my hard work, I increased the value of the neighborhood around it, right? Legitimately. This is not going to do that. What you've done is taken the work that I've done and now depreciated it, just like everybody else around the property, because nobody wants to live next to a project. And this is a project, whether it's a ghetto project, it's a project, right? It's a project. It's a whole bunch of people living in a very confined area. We're in central Maine where land is in abundance. If you want to make this gamble, I don't understand why you don't make it a mile out of town, a quarter of a mile out of town, up by Thomas Field, something that not everybody has to look at every single day for affordable housing. Well, there's affordable housing all over central Maine. I bought my house, I'm embarrassed to say, for less than I paid for my pickup. And I fixed it. So there's affordable housing in North Anson and Anson. And if people would be forced to buy these homes and fix them, maybe it would improve our community. Rather than have an influx of people that are being pumped into this place for who knows what the real agenda is. We've all been lied to so much in our lives by everybody above us, right? How can we believe that what they're saying is actually the truth? I don't. I believe that that is going to become Section 8 housing in 10 years. I don't think you're going to be able to keep it full. I think it's going to get sold. Somebody else will buy it. Might not be Section 8, but it'll be a dump. And then we're going to have a pile of people in there. Whatever you guys want. I'm going back to Hamden.
Great.
I lived for 40 years across the street from this project. I lived at 65 Westin Avenue, 58 Westin Avenue, and that's my old house right there.
Beautiful.
There was over 100 kids over there all the time. And there was more racket, believe me, it was a great place to live.
Thank you. Next.
If you also think of it right across, well, like almost diagonal to it, there is a building, the Schuster building, and that's being sold to someone in Florida who's going to be turning that into even more apartments. So no matter what you even think of, there's a lot of places on that whole street that could be bought and turned into apartments too. So why go against one place that is going to redo the whole entire building and make new ones, rather than take one that could already have asbestos, mold, other problems. The place right across the street has fallen windows, cracking, things getting destroyed. The basement is just soaked, and it's going to be remade and redone. And who knows, you might find other problems, but at least they're making theirs all from scratch, and it's going to be all brand new.
I've known the Height family all my life, and they're very good at running federal buildings, state buildings. They've done an excellent job. I've never seen anything that wasn't AAA. They're a 5-star operation.
Any other comments?
I have just a couple more things. Some of the things that were mentioned was the process of the town being able to sell town-owned property. And if you look at our town meeting warrant, every year the people that attend town meeting, they authorize the selectmen in an article that says the selectmen have the authority to dispose of tax-acquired property in the manner they deem to be in the best interest of the town. And I went back all the way back to 2014. We've had that language in there every year the same way. But there's always this assumption that the select board has the authority to sell town-owned property. Now, this property was not tax acquired. This property had a school built on it in 1920, and a private owner sold that piece of land to the town to build that school on it, just like they did the old high school and the building you're in now. And so then the MSADs were formed. There was a time where there were not school districts. And so those schools became property of the school district. And when the school district was done with those schools, they had the privilege of turning them back over to the town. So that's how the town acquired that property up there. So is it town acquired or tax acquired? And that's always the legal go-between as to what actually, constitutes the authority of this board to sell property. So I've been talking with the developers, and they've been talking with their lawyers. Every time the select board sells property, they do it with a quitclaim deed. And if you're familiar with property, a quitclaim deed is the loosest possible deed you can get. Because that basically says the owners, the inhabitants of the town, they release all claims to it. However, if you've ever tried to finance a piece of property and you go to your bank with a quitclaim deed, they're going to laugh at you, right? Because it's not worth anything, because someone could come back and make a claim on that property within 5 years. Every time this board does transactions with tax acquired, they do it with a quitclaim deed. So the lawyers that have been working to do the deed for this property with these developers have said, we got a problem here. You can't take a quitclaim deed because you're financing this parcel of property. So you need two things. You need a survey and you need a properly executed deed. So you probably can't see this, but I don't know if there's any way to reference this to this. So the town has agreed to sell this property to the developers in 2 phases. The first phase will be essentially this part right here, not including these properties down here. we have to retain this portion over here because that's where the old school was. In 2014, it was demolished. The town did hire Dirigo Engineering to do the project. They did a lead abatement, and an asbestos abatement. But the developers are still going to require a phase 1 environmental brownfield study. And so a phase 1 study means we have to actually spend some money to dig up what's here and actually guarantee to them that there's no bad stuff here anymore. So that takes a couple of years. So while this project for 1 and 2 are underway, the town is working to do the brownfield study on that site. So part of this process is two-phased. We deed over the first half so they can get started on their project. Once they're up and built, then they determine the answer to a lot of our unknown speculative questions. Will people actually come? Will they rent? What you know? Is this, are they going to be able to do it for the amount they've budgeted? All these questions will kind of be answered in the first couple of years while they're doing this. So we paid Sack and Blake. The town paid half and the developers paid half to get the property surveyed so we could split it properly. That's the first thing the lawyer required. The second thing the lawyer required is to tighten up a little bit of this quitclaim deed business. So I'm going to let Kara just explain a little bit in particular what the lawyer asked for and what you as developers are asking for from us.
Yeah, the language that Tim referred to in the annual vote you guys take about what the select board is authorized to sell was a little confusing in the sense of was it tax acquired or not, and so it seemed to make sense to us to do a town meeting vote on the project. I think for two purposes. One, to clarify that it actually is, we are authorized to take the property, or for the town to sell us the property. And then also just to get more public buy-in on the project and give people a chance to talk about it more and be a part of voting on it and hopefully voting in favor of adding housing to your downtown. So that was sort of the answer we came to after hearing a lot of the conversation that was happening and talking about the legal ramifications of the way things were worded in here.
So my understanding is if the town calls a special town meeting in the next couple of weeks and people attend that town meeting, and if they vote in favor of authorizing the select board to sell this specific piece of property, then you'll be much closer to a done deal. But at least the public will have their say in that opportunity. So if the public votes it down, then the project stops right there. So that's what the developers have asked of me, and so that is what eventually the select board will have to decide on, whether or not they want to call a special town meeting. After talking with Kara's lawyer, I did draft up 3 articles. First article of town meeting is always to elect a moderator. That's for article number 1. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to negotiate the terms and conditions of the sale of the property at 55 Westin Avenue for new housing development. And that would be a straight yes or no, up or down. Now, while we're at a town meeting, we may also want to address this as the last article, to see if the town will authorize the select board to sell town-owned property in any manner that the select board deems to be in the best interest of the town. So those are the 3 articles that I proposed to the select board to see if they wanted to entertain an idea of having a special town meeting on this topic.
All right, any other questions about the project? Yes, ma'am.
Just going on top of what you just mentioned about having a special meeting. How are you going to make sure that the town is aware of this meeting?
Boy, Megan, you ask great questions.
Sorry.
And I will point you out publicly that you and I have had several email conversations about this very topic. How do we get the word out? Mary Tomlinson, who's the chair of the planning board, is here. And the planning board made a bold move this past month to post their public hearing on Facebook. And I don't know if any of you noticed, but that got a lot of attention on Facebook. I would say if we hold a special town meeting, we will post it on Facebook. And
And we
people
also,
can,
you also have to post it publicly.
You- I mean, you-
It's gotta be in places where.
We'll have
we
to go
post
back and hide it
meetings.
again?
you,
We have to post it everywhere, so.
well, I think that's part of the disconnect that we're having as a municipality and some of the residents. When we say we post it everywhere, we post it in the town office. We used to post it at Hannaford's, they won't let us anymore. We posted on a bulletin board on the side of the road in East Madison that I'm sure you've all driven by, right? So these are our, and this is what the state requires. Freedom of access requires that you post your meetings. We also send out emails to about 100, 150 people. So we satisfy, and I've used this a couple times with you, Megan, we satisfy the letter of the law. But you brought back the question, are we really satisfying the spirit of the law? Are we really trying to get the information out there? So it'll be posted in the everywhere places that we always post, and the emails will be sent out, but we will also ask you Facebook people to post it on Facebook. I am not a Facebook person, so.
And the other thing, if you want an email from us, please let the town manager know, and he can put you on the email list. Bob?
I was at the planning board meeting when we first talked about this. The rendering that's here now differs from the rendering from the first meeting. There are 4 units on this now. There originally was 5. There's a green space, which wasn't on the first one. Some of the issues that were brought up at that planning board meeting have been met here on this rendering. What I'm asking is before the town turns around and decides to step into this puddle, that the puddle, we know what we're getting into. I still feel as though there's too many gray areas where the back section of the property where the swing set was and where the horseshoe pits are, that there's going to be units in there. There's a sidewalk, there's still no sidewalk here, but it's pretty close to the street. But there have been changes on this, but if they can change that quick, before the town selectmen decide on buying into the whole thing, I'd like to see the whole thing in concrete. I want to see a drawing of what's here. I was told today that we're going to have solar energy on these units, but in the rendering we show nothing. I've been told that according to the Maine State Housing, this type of occupancy is required to be fully sprinkled. But when I don't see that in the print. But it's one of the things that I'm serious about. If we turn around and bring 32 housing units in here, and we house these people because of our volunteer fire department, because of our no alarm systems, because of our water supply, I want these buildings protected. And if Mr. Height's going to spend $5 million on this project, I want to protect his investment.
Not just Mr. Height.
I was just going to respond. By building code, they have to be sprinkled, so they're sprinkled, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Not corridors, not closets like the junior high school in one Madison Avenue. 100% sprinkled.
And
See it on the print.
and then we did these renderings since the last meeting. And I forgot to put the solar panels on, but I think we're looking south, so they'd be on.
You'd be looking at them right now.
You'd be
Yeah,
looking
you'd
at
be
them.
looking at this side of the building. Yeah.
Yep. And then as far as the playground, we heard at the last meeting that there is an interest in having the project give back in more ways to the community, that there was an interest in active open space, and so we talked about it and thought that would be a nice, improvement to the project.
So,
I
all
think-
I'm saying is that it's concrete. That
Well, I think
if there's gonna be buildings in the back, I wanna see them.
I think if on buildings in the back, has to go back to the planning board. So if there's any buildings in the back that are gonna be built, they have to go back to the planning board and get approval for those. Those are not part of the plan. at this
This
point.
is the only thing that's approved.
Right, the only thing is in the,
Phase 1 and phase 2 here. So we're talking about phase 3 later on down.
3 and 4, that would have to go in front of the planning board again.
So we get to do this dance again.
I hope
Yes.
not.
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
I think that when it's all said and done, and after the money's been made, you got gas being what it is, you've already got people that own homes in the town that are waiting on GOLAP. You've already got people that are willing to work, that already have a mortgage. And after the money's been made, then the brand new and up to code building falls in disrepair and gets sold. I think, yeah, you know, there's, apartments coming on Westin anyway. We've heard this before. I'm glad that this is, like I said, a cash cow. This is a way to invest, but it's not exactly a great idea. And I just want the selectmen to hear that we're not alone in this. This place is already in disrepair. The town's in disrepair. And I think that adding an investment in town like that, I mean, we're already getting our vehicles broken into. We're already getting horses let out on Ward Hill Road. We're already getting blowback from the economy and the lack of things. I mean, years ago, there was bowling alley in town, there was a pool hall in town, there was places for kids to go and things to do. And now we're just kind of bottling them up into the haves and the have-nots. And I just want to publicly say that this is a shitty idea. You know?
All right, so, any other comments? All right, so, I'm sorry, Mr. Gilpin, too close to me.
A couple questions. On this environmental study we're gonna do when we dig it up, now, this isn't gonna cost town of Madison anything, right?
So you have to get a grant through the Environmental Protection Agency, and we've applied for it.
Okay, you
Yes.
applied for it already?
Yes.
All right, because last time we did this, it cost the town $205,000.
I don't think that's exactly the same project that you're looking at here.
No, I hope it isn't.
Right.
Okay, and the other thing on the survey on this now, if they're gonna, before, we always give quick claim deed, right? We always do that. Now they want a deed,
Right.
so we're gonna pay for that?
I believe the developer's gonna pay through that, through their attorney fees.
Okay, so they're gonna pay for that?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing, let's see, survey that, we just talked about everything except for, I still don't understand the environmental thing. If, right here you gave us this paper, it says summer, June, it says summer 2014, the very first one there.
Yeah.
It said that Diego Engineering watched the guy fill it in, did all that stuff.
And they have all the documentation from all the different companies that do the abatement, but they did not do a phase 1 brownfield study. And that's what you're looking for to developer. The builder won't go on it unless that's been done. So I believe, looking at what Diego did, we have all the nuts and bolts of it. We just need to be able to put it together for an official Brownsfield phase 1 environmental study.
All right, so the question to the board right now is, we want to send this to a special town meeting on August 29th at 7 o'clock in the evening. 3 articles. One, to choose a moderator to preside at the meeting, and I assume Ernie is available. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to negotiate the terms and conditions of the sale of property at 55 Westin Avenue for housing development. And Article 3, to see if the town would vote to authorize the select board to sell town-owned property in a manner that the select board, should change that probably. Select board deemed to be in the best interest of the town. The select board recommends yes to both questions. Do I have a motion? Mr. Mayor.
I'll make a motion that we have a special town meeting with the 3 articles just read.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor to send town to a special town meeting on August 29th, Monday, August 29th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Junior High Auditorium. These 3 articles. Any other questions from Mr. Elias?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, have already done number 2?
We have not.
You have not negotiated with them at all?
Well, yes, but I think we have to ask, I think the developer's asking us to ask the town for a yes or no.
So on article number 2, if
Yep.
the town says no, it's not gonna happen?
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, but I didn't understand
Right.
where the town had the authority to say yes or no, and that's the number,
Right,
number 2.
right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Elias. Great to see you. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? And 4 in favor, against, 1 against. The motion carries. We will go to town meeting on the 29th. Thank you very much.
Work on posting.
Yes, we'll work on posting. All right, item of communication, town manager?
A couple of things. Lien notices were processed today. We did 120 notices for unpaid 2021 taxes. That's the lowest amount I've ever seen. I will be at the Maine Town and City Managers Conference this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's up in Sugarloaf. I'm commuting back and forth. So I'll be in the office a little bit. Madison Anson Days kicks off Friday the 19th with events in Anson, and Saturday the 20th with parade, carnival, and fireworks in Madison. That's all I got.
All right, thank you very much. Letter G, new business, department heads. We have the police report, we have the fire report, and we have the road commissioner here. Mr. Road Commissioner.
You guys have gotten any questions about the water level over to the lake? I went over this morning and checked it. The water level has dropped over 7 inches. And I received a few calls on some of the property owners around the lake that they had some concerns, so.
Hey guys, we can take it out in the hall, it'd be awesome. Thanks.
So, in reviewing the dam's been all cleaned out, there was no leakage, everything is fine, it's just basically there's no water, because we haven't been rain for months. I know our discussion at the last meeting about the rec fields, a local contractor has gone down and did a tremendous job on redoing the parking lot in by the football fields, way in, and did some other road work. Sometime in the last couple of days, the parking lot that had been graded and spent whatever the amount was has been totally destroyed and dug up by a vehicle or two. The sheriff's department has been notified. They went down and took some pictures today.
Are they four-wheelers or are they?
They're vehicles, full on-road vehicles. So I know there was some discussion at the last meeting about possibly putting some game cams up or possibly even putting some gates up to keep people out. And, you know, and seeing what's been going on down there the last couple of years, you know, I strongly recommend that we invest some money and put the gates back up where they belong to keep the people out of there. It's unfortunate it has to come to that, but, you know, we need to spend all that money down there and have it torn up within a week.
Where was this, Jeff?
Down to the rec fields, Bob, off Pebble Avenue.
It'd be down on field 3 and 4.
The little kids one?
3, 4, I guess 5, right?
Yes.
5.
Yeah, there's one way down.
One way down, yeah, the parking lot, they did the whole parking lot over.
And it's also by the football entrance too.
And the parking lot by the football entrance had been dug up also. And the whole end, the softball practice fields to the west side of the softball fields had been also drove on, and a couple donuts done also.
You have any ideas?
The sheriff's department's looking into it. Mr. LeBlanc does have a lead. Other than that, no. So I don't know if that one's going to be a topic.
What was his thoughts on the gates?
He recommended anything would go along what the select persons or myself had to agree with. He wouldn't care either way because he's just as frustrated as everyone else is.
Can you put some prices together and get?
Yeah, I got a price today for 2 gates. We can install them at the highway department. The gates will roughly run between $2,200 and $2,500 per gate. They're a couple weeks out if necessary. Price of steel fluctuates up and down. Could be a little more, could be a little less by the time they're built.
Man,
There used to be a gate down there. I'd suggest that somebody chase that one down and get it back. I don't know who had it taken out or where it went.
Think Chris knows about that?
He might. There was a gate, and from what I understand, it was taken out because of an inconvenience of opening and closing it. The town has since added another entrance into those ball fields, just for the sake of convenience of getting in and out, so we'd have to purchase another gate regardless if the other one did get found. They'll be chip sealing the Blockwell Hill Road starting Wednesday, weather permitting. So if you want to go out and watch out. Have 2 interviews set up this week for potential new hires on the highway and equipment operator position. Been doing a little work on the Low Mills Road with what little crew I have to get some ditching done and ready for pavement in the coming weeks. The crosswalks does not look like they're going to be painted before Father All Days or Madison Anson Days. The contractor is extremely busy and short on help and just could not get up here unless he happens to show up next week. The street sweeper will be here next Wednesday or Thursday to clean up the avenues and Main Street.
Is there somebody else we can go to get those crosswalks done?
There is. The price would be considerably a lot more. This guy has done the streets for the last 12, 15 years possibly. He did make an attempt last week. He got up here and got the arrows painted under the lights. Then it came in and rained, so we turned around and go home. But he has normally he has 3 crews that he normally runs day and night, and he's got one crew.
How much does it cost for a crosswalk?
Those crosswalks run roughly $75 to $100, depends on the length.
Okay, anything else? All right, so where do we want to go with this gate idea? Do we want to bring it up to the next meeting and come up with some numbers for us? We have numbers. I mean, I know Jeff gave us some rough numbers there, but I mean, is it something we want to wait and do then, or Samantha?
Like we just gave the rec $10,000. If they have any of that left, why, they could probably purchase at least 1 gate. Or if they need to, purchase 2.
So I believe that the allocation was for $10,000 for the Preble Avenue fields. And I think Jeff Bess's bill was 5,000?
I haven't gotten it.
You haven't got it yet, okay.
It's under 5.
Okay, so we're anticipating the grading work that was done to be under 5. Now, however, because of the damage that was done with 4-wheelers or trucks or what have you, we will have to have somebody come back out and grade that again. But I believe that allows us about $5,000 to look into purchasing and installing gates and to see if there is one that was used and moved somewhere else, so.
There was one, definitely. Where it went, I don't know. Highway made it.
I'll ask the people in charge.
All right, so is that something we want to vote on, doing that, or just take it, that money's already approved anyway, so we can take it out of there? I would say, is that consensus of the board?
Yeah.
Really hate to put a gate up, but I guess it's time.
I think based on the conversation at the last meetings, that these gates would be placed far enough in so that if people wanted to come and get out and walk or walk their dogs, they could park and not be on the road. But the gate would deter, you're probably not gonna stop everybody, but it would deter people from easy access to get in there and fool
So
around.
our next issue with gates are gonna be on next spring.
Yeah.
When people start to use it for baseball and softball and that kind of stuff. So that's
Correct.
gonna be when are they open,
Correct.
who's gonna open and who's gonna close them, so. All right, so that's something to look forward to.
We'll report back at the next meeting.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's the wishes of the board. I'm fine. I can move forward and get some more concrete prices. And I don't know who, you want to get ahold of Chris, see where that gate possibly is going.
Yeah.
That's what you guys want to do, that's
There's
fine.
nothing up to the town garage like that.
Pardon?
The town garage is nothing, that isn't up there.
No.
How long ago was that, Glenn? You remember?
I do remember when it was.
That's a long
That's
time
close
ago.
to probably 8 years, maybe.
Nice heavy gate.
Maybe even closer to 10.
Yes.
It's been a while.
All right, so we'll be on, you can be on the lookout for it, I guess. All right, anything else on the gate? Okay, number 2, discuss tax commitment of 2022 taxes.
Well, Shirley and I ran some numbers today, and we were 90% sure we'd be able to get you the tax commitment papers tonight. However, we ran some spot checks that I think you will appreciate and decided to wait because there is a glitch in Trio. So don't look for any commitment papers in your packets. There's a glitch in Trio that is not consistent on land values. When Shirley made the adjustments to raise values 5%, some properties went up 5%, some properties went down 5%, so that's not consistent. She's gonna call into Trio tomorrow to see what we're not doing right or if it's a glitch in Trio. So we hope to be able to get those numbers fixed. We may be able to get them to you as soon as Friday or call another meeting on Monday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to have those commitment papers ready. But I do not want to give you commitment papers that will end up with inconsistent tax bills.
Right. All right, number 3, budget review fiscal year 2022.
So in your package, you've got lots of spreadsheets and lots of numbers. I'll just touch on some of the highlights of revenues that ended the last fiscal year, June 30th. The amount of excise tax collected on vehicle registrations was a little over $100,000 more than we budgeted and about $50,000 or $60,000 more than the average, which was good. That led to an overall increase in our revenues over what we budgeted for by $100,000. Then you add in main revenue sharing, and we had a surplus of revenues of about $260,000. Main revenue sharing has been very good over the last year or so, and we hope that to be the case. So revenues are good. That's essentially money that goes to the general fund that we can help use to offset taxes next year. Does anybody have questions about revenues? All right. The other sheets pertain to the expenses, and overall, we spent about 95% of our overall non-capital budget. And you can see it's broken down by each article there: general government, public safety, utilities, public works, recreation, cemeteries, community services, library, and town property. Some of those articles came pretty close, within a few $100s, but only one article was over. And that's an overdraft that we always struggle with. Again, I'll say the same thing I said last year. I hope we have adjusted the budget enough for the front gate and the back gate, but we were over this year. So if you look at Article 8 where it says public utilities, you'll see we were in the red by $10,513.41. Part of that was streetlights was a little higher than we anticipated. The money that we budgeted for hydrants was a little bit higher, and solid waste disposal was $10,000 higher. So overall, that number is out of whack. does anybody have any questions about expenses other than Article 8? I do want to seek some board action on that. All right, so on Article 8, I would like to see if the board would authorize transferring $10,513.41 from undesignated fund balance to cover that overdraft. And you're authorized to do that in Article 7 of the 2022 town meeting warrant. So I would need a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion that we transfer the $10,513.41 from the undesignated fund balance as requested.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any questions? All right, seeing none, we have a motion to transfer $10,513.41 from the undesignated fund balance to Article 8. Is that okay with the
Right, to public utilities.
Public Utilities, Article 8?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Manager?
On hydrants, why did, I guess why was that kind of under budgeted?
So I went to the former superintendent, Mike Corson, and he gives me a budget number every year.
Yeah.
So he gave me a budget number of $235,000, and that's what I plugged into that budget back then. They did a rate increase, and Mike didn't factor that in. And so that's why one of the quarters was higher than the other quarters, and that bumped it over.
Yeah, 'cause I thought that would be a known item, but it changed.
For years, they always had this, they always kept the same number. And then they started doing rate increases, which everybody had to. And so it is a complicated thing to figure, and I should have rounded up when I got the number from.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, all in favor, motion carries. Let's see. That's the front page here. There we go. Okay, number 4, discuss carry forward amounts.
All right, you should have a spreadsheet in your packet that looks like that. And after talking with the department heads, we have requests to carry forward unspent money in this year's budget for the Public Works Department, for the Fire Department, for General Government, which is admin, and for the library. Those projects are listed there. So overall, the road commissioner is asking for a carry forward of $49,500. Talking to the fire chief, he is requesting a carry forward of $11,300. After talking with Tammy and discussing our computer needs and code enforcement, we are requesting a carry forward of $50,000. And the library, Julie is working on a ramp project, and she's asking for as much as she can get, which is about $6,500. So those are the non-capital carry forwards, totaling $117,300. Any questions?
All right, looking for a motion to carry forward $117,300 on non-capital.
I'll make a motion that we carry over 117.3 from non-capital.
All right, I'll second it. Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Goldman.
So this is gonna be added on to their budget, what we voted on?
That's correct.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Manta.
Why do we need 25,000 more in code enforcement.
So last year's budget that we were working for in code enforcement was about $65,000. And we only spent about 13 or 14,000 of that because we always had a part-time code officer. So when I presented the budget to the board and the advisory committee for a full-time code officer, I increased that total line from 65,000 up to 75,000. But when I came back to the budget committee and the board to go with the budget, I had reduced it, saying that we can, if we do hire someone full-time, we should have enough money left over to carry forward enough to fill that budget. So the budget that was passed for code enforcement is only $52,000, which is total. That 25,000 will bring that up to about 77,000, which will cover all the expenses of a code officer, and there's also $7,000 in there to pay for a contracted planner through KV Cog. So all that money in the budget doesn't go to the code officer. Some of it goes to a contracted planner. But what I explained to the board and to the budget committee at the time of the budget was to save the taxpayers' money now, knowing that we're not going to spend that code office budget in this year because we didn't have a full-time code officer. We would lower the amount to take to the taxpayers at town meeting and fund the rest of it with carry forward. So that's what I'm proposing.
And so next year, that money will be, that will be a.
Next year, that will be an increase in the line. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All vote in favor. Opposed? All right, so we have to go back. Motion fails, so we have to go back. What are we gonna carry forward? We're gonna carry anything forward. Mr. Moody, do we want to take these individually? Public Works?
That would be good. So in the Public Works Department, there's a total amount of $49,500, some for gas and diesel, that's a small amount. Special projects, we've always tried to carry forward money in special projects just in case a project comes up that's unforeseen, then the road commissioner has some funds to work with. And the other amount is the wage increases that the board discussed last week when we had to make a memorandum of understanding for the highway contract to raise wages to a point where the road commissioner could actually go out and hire folks. So that's what makes up that $49,500 for the Public Works Department.
All right, so we have a motion for that, $49,500. Mr. Moody.
Question is that 5,000 gonna be enough for your diesel up there in the garage?
That's on top of the 35 or 40 that we've already raised through town meeting. That would give me roughly $45,000. Your guess is as good as mine, Ron.
Yeah.
You know, the new truck that we had purchased, the 1 ton that we had purchased is a gas job. And that gets just as good as fuel mileage as a diesel does.
Okay.
So the other thing I'd like to see, you know, I'd like to bring up is the special projects. You know, Glenn knows what those entitle, but just for a peace of mind, you know, we do small projects, small sidewalk projects with them, something that, you know, we can do and buy the mix as a town crew. When they were tearing the tracks up down at the lower mill, I had the guys that were doing the track removal, had them pull up the tracks that crossed before you went down into the lower mill where they used to haul the pulpwood into. They pulled them, so that's gonna need to be graded and paved over. You know, it's gonna cost a couple $1,000s. We can obviously do the grading, but it would have to be done with a paver to make that a little bit more accessible in case we do need to utilize that area down there for possibly some future parking or something. And, you know, there's some work that needs to be done on the Adams Road, out 12 corners, that there's a few taxpayers down there that have been asking to get that road touched up a little bit. They don't want a whole lot of done to it, but they just have some concerns, you know, so those are a couple of the small projects, for the special projects, if you guys were wondering.
Okay.
Fine. Make a motion, Mr. Moody?
Yeah, I'll make that motion for 49,500 on the public works surplus.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve the carry forward for 49,500 for Public Works. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, Mr. Moody, yes? Yes, okay, all in favor, motion carries. All right, let's move to the fire department.
So talking with the chief, he is asking for $4,000 from his vehicle line, just in case there's any incidentals and increases to the fire truck purchase that should be coming along in the next couple of months. He doesn't anticipate much, that's why he asked for $4,000. They heat the Company 2 in East Madison with propane, so he asked for a little bit of cushion on the cost of propane, which is up with everything else. He's adding $300 to maintenance of the SCBA's. He's got some back-ordered uniforms, and that's going to kind of lump more uniforms into this fiscal year. So he's asked for $1,000 more there, and then additional gas and diesel prices. So a total of $11,300.
All right, looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the 11,300 carried forward for the fire department.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to carry forward 11,300 to the fire department. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. And our next one is in general government, Article 6, to carry forward $50,000 to the code enforcement replacement computers and complete server changeover.
So I've already explained a little bit about the code enforcement line, and Tammy and I have discussed computers, and it has been taxing, to say the least, on the number of new computers we've needed to replace and the server. As you are aware, when we discussed the budget, we have entered into a contract with Maine Technical Services, which is an IT company. This is the first time we've ever done this. We've usually gotten by on the cheap with help from Somerset County and Computer Improvements when they could get to us. But we've run into more and more problems from things that have gone bad that we weren't aware of. So we entered into this new agreement knowing we would need a new server, which is partially installed right now, and knowing we would need new computers, and knowing we would need to fund this arrangement with Maine Technology Group. So that is what the $5,000 and the $20,000 carry forward for. And again, we didn't spend we came up nearly $70,000 in unspent funds. So that's what is recommended for general government.
Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we spend the 50,000 carry over for general government.
Second? I will second that. I guess I'll ask the question. I mean, we talked about the first one when we were doing our budget, that we were gonna have to do something like that. So I don't really understand what the problem is.
You asking me?
Oh, I'm not, I guess throw it out there, Mr. Cooper, not you, not pointing at you, my old friend.
No, I'm still a little upset about the code enforcement when it wasn't told that it was gonna be split into different jobs.
I remember it being explained that way.
Well, it wasn't that way in the book either.
Right, but I remember it being explained to us that way, though. That was gonna be a full-time job. that we're gonna
Right,
have.
full-time code enforcement job, that's the way I understood it.
Probably change it to that, I mean. Could probably just have them do code enforcement if we wanted to. But I think we have good people in place, and I think we need to take care of them. and make sure we keep them there. Stony.
I think, this is my opinion, I think we made a mistake on that. That in the warrant that we took to town meeting, you specifically see that we had a line there for code enforcement. Not code enforcement, maintenance. And that's what the town voted on, code enforcement. So I don't think we can create that second position and add it to it. I don't think we can do it because we didn't do it at town meeting. If you can explain that to me, then I might understand it.
Yeah, I can't really explain it, but I mean, I think we went over that in our budget formula, the formation of the budget, and we talked about that, having that person do a secondary thing in order to make a full-time job.
See, I don't remember that maintenance being mentioned.
Yep.
Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I don't remember that maintenance because, you know, I always figured, I mean, when Bobby Dunphy was here, at the most he worked was 3 days a week. That was it.
Right.
And now we're creating another position to justify that person being there 5 days instead of 3 days.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think we should do it, and the reason I give you, because we didn't take it to town meeting. The town voted on a code enforcement officer, not a maintenance man. Nothing was mentioned at town meeting. That's my reason.
So if we make it just a code enforcement officer,
Yeah, what are you gonna do with him the rest of the time?
I mean, I think,
How are you gonna keep him there for five days in a row, week after week, and keep him busy?
I think we probably could, but
No other code enforcement officer has been able to.
because we haven't hired them on that basis. We've only hired them with a couple days a week.
We don't even have a job description.
For the code enforcement officer?
Maintenance. I understand the code enforcement part of it. You know, I have no problem at all. I just think we got a little glitch here, that's all.
So how are we gonna get out of the little glitch?
No, not fund it.
Well, all right, hey. So do I.
If I recall, we talked about this last meeting, I recall that when we did talk about it, it was the maintenance piece that we wanted to have so that jobs like this building being refurbished weren't, the work wasn't being done by our town manager in his spare time, which he has none. My understanding, and I feel, Al, hopefully you agree with me, that was clearly stated when we talked about this, that that's what we were hoping to do. Tim can't be doing all these maintenance projects. He shouldn't be doing all these maintenance projects. The town should be paying someone to do those. And that position, I totally understand when Tim explained it, was to use for code enforcement. And the other thing is too, that code enforcement is not what it used to be. I don't know about Bob Dunphy because I wasn't here back then, but code enforcement is a lot different today. It has to be, you have to take courses, you have to understand the building codes. There's lots and lots and lots more stuff that's being done today than there were back then. So, you know, I'm perfectly comfortable with what we decided. I don't understand why the rest of us aren't. And it makes all the sense in the world to me. Tim should not be doing those projects.
It was mentioned before that he doesn't have a certification yet. Does he have that now?
He has 1 year. One year from the date of appointment.
So he can't do a lot of that work for this year?
No, he can sign off on building codes and plumbing permits and that
Okay.
sort of thing, building permits. But he has, by state law, they have 1 year to get certified. 1 year from the date of appointment, and you appointed him in end of June.
Okay. So he doesn't have to take any tests, classes, or anything like that in that 1 year?
Oh, yes. Yeah, he had 1 year to do all those tests and pass all those classes.
I mean, we're begging people in their 70s to come out and be code enforcement officers, except for the young man that we had before. As soon as he got a job, he was gone. As soon as he got a full-time job, he was gone. So we're begging these guys to come out and do this stuff. Where are we gonna find this person that's going to do this part-time? I just don't think it's out there. We've, you know, and both of them, I mean, Bobby and Leo, I mean, both of them did their job, but they're not available anymore. So I just don't know where we're gonna get these people that we expect to work part-time. They aren't there.
I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
But at the same time, for the life of me, I'll say it again, I didn't understand the direction that it was going into. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. I could be guilty of that. But we're talking code enforcement. We're not talking maintenance. We're talking code enforcement. And in the meantime, the other people that we hired coming in were certified code enforcement officers. Now we have a code enforcement officer that we're gonna pay to go to school and take tests.
Just want to clarify a couple of things. Mr. Moody, if you ask me for a job description for both, I'll get it to you, because there is one.
Okay.
Mr. Mantua read from it at the last meeting. So there is a job description for a code officer / facilities maintenance person.
Okay.
Susan Hathaway, when we hired her on Bob Dunphy's recommendation, she was not certified. We paid her to get certified, and she did in that first year. So there is a precedent for hiring people that are going to get their certification. Amos Mishu was a golden boy. I mean, he came right out of community college and had his certifications, but he had no experience. So David Savage took him under his wing, and he worked with him down in Oakland, and after a month, David said, this guy can be a code officer. And so when I was building the budget that we just finished, I was building money into it so that we could hire Amos full-time this year. But we couldn't do it because Winslow offered him a full-time job starting in April at $25 an hour. And so I said, okay, we're not gonna spend all this budget. So in order to save the taxpayers money, I'm gonna build a code enforcement budget that is gonna rely on carrying forward what we didn't spend. And so we did that with computers, we did it with special projects, we do it with the fire department and the library every year. We kind of try to keep the taxpayers' burden as low as possible, knowing that we can come to the board and carry forward for certain projects or positions. I don't think it's any secret that my decision, and it's completely mine, my decision to hire the public works foreman when he came to me and applied for the job, it is clear that my decision you disagree with. And I understand that. But it's still my decision. I'm authorized to hire and fire. I made a mistake. I should have brought the road commissioner into this process before I made my final decision. And for that I am sorry, and for that I know that I made the mistake of doing it. But if what you're trying to do is to try to make an adjustment based on your disapproval of my decision, the fact of the matter is we've offered a person a position. And I explained to this board and the advisory board, just like I said to that young lady, Megan, could I have made it clearer at town meeting? Sure. I could have put right on that town meeting warrant, code enforcement, maintenance facilities. And if somebody saw that and asked a question, we could have discussed it there. I'm sorry, I didn't do that. But right now is where we're at. And I'd like to know from this board how you want me to move forward.
And I have no problem. The problem that I have, now let me clarify this with you, is that we did not go to town meeting with that wording.
Right.
The town voted on a code enforcement officer, period. There was no /maintenance.
Yep.
That's where I have a problem, Tim.
So can we find work for the code enforcement? Cut the maintenance off it.
But
You
if we,
hired him as a code enforcement officer,
all.
not a maintenance
Okay,
man.
all right, I just said, cut the maintenance off it and have, for this year, have a code enforcement officer.
but what are you
That is
gonna,
full-time.
right, because the job that I offered to that individual was a 40-hour-a-week job with benefits.
Right.
We'd never done that before. I was hoping to do that with Amos, but he left before I could do that. So we could be talking about this job with Amos as a maintenance person. We could be talking about it with another person that we potentially could have hired. But what we're talking about is the person that has been hired and has been on the job for 4 weeks.
I really think we gotta continue with it. I don't see how we can say no. If we make it a full-time code enforcement officer, let's make it that. The maintenance piece is gone. Mr. Gopi.
Yes, I don't have a problem with the person you have there. And I don't think Ron does either. It's not that. It's where it was not presented to the people. That's my only concern. They should have known at the town meeting that they were going to vote for a code enforcement / maintenance person. And then that's where all that money was gonna go. Because normally, it's only 2 or 3 days a week at the most, we need a code enforcement. And wintertime, there's not that much going on for them. And that's what makes it bad to get a full-time one. But that's my concern. And we don't have enough buildings for a maintenance person either. I mean, I assume he's gonna do repairs in the buildings, in this room, and Go Lab's gonna do something with this room, so.
We don't know that yet, but I think that we have window project at the town office.
Okay.
And I think we have some things there that can be done to make it through a year anyways. I don't know after that what we do, but I mean, we can come back next year and try to do it, but I think it was pretty clear. I myself think it was pretty clear on what we were trying to do. Whether that says code enforcement / maintenance man, it doesn't. I'll concede that, but I think as a group, we knew what we were doing. Yes.
Does it really, do you think it will really make any difference to the town, what you call it? Whether you call it code enforcement officer and assign extra duties for him to enable to keep that full-time job, or code enforcement officer / maintenance man? Is that really going to make a difference? And secondly, it is not unusual, I don't believe, for persons in a certain job, whether that's in education, whether that's in state government, whether that's in a store, whatever, for a person hired in one position to be given extra duties that do not have anything to do with what they were hired for. That's not uncommon to do that. You cover in a business or in government, whatever. In my division where I work, we have our primary duties, but we cover other things. We have to do that because of lack of staff. So in this case, you have lack of work for a code enforcement officer, which we desperately need, and you can't find a half-time person to do it. And even when Bobby Dunphy was here, he wasn't getting enough hours for what he needed to do here in Madison. And so now you have someone who has the hours to do, whether it's 20 hours of code enforcement one week and 30 hours the next week, they will have that flexibility. And I think that's important.
And we've never tried a full-time code officer, so we don't really know that answer. We're saying there's not there's not enough time, but we haven't tried that. Any other questions? I would hope we'd support this, because I think we need to move forward with it in the fashion that we're moving. Mr. Elias.
I'd just like to say a couple of things. In answer to her, at town meeting, when you talk about code enforcement, we never had a full-time code enforcement since I was on board. So the problem is the taxpayer does not realize they're creating a new position paying benefits, number one. And secondly, I have a question. Is this person going to be allowed to plow the sidewalk, say? Work for the road department in the winter? Is that what you call maintenance? I'll ask Jeff.
That's up to the road commissioner. Yeah.
I understand Larry's getting done, your sidewalk guy.
Yeah, yes he is, George.
But I'm saying to help you out, instead of finding other part-time people out there in the street to plow, is this guy gonna be able to do that?
Yeah, he has more than the capability to jump in a plow truck or a sidewalk plow or anything like that and be on call and get up and work with the crew in the middle of the night.
Well, that's my point. So if you want to use this person, I think, is this Mary over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You had your hair cut, but, you know, to do like Mary says, I mean, if you want to utilize this person, full-time benefits, and I realize that's not cheap, then if this person's going to be allowed to work with the road department, so that's one less person you have to hire. Am I correct?
Exactly.
Well, is that a doable thing to get this thing moving?
Probably that would have to be a discussion that we would have to have at another time, George.
Okay, I'm just asking.
And to answer your question, Mary, or to make a comment to your question, when that person left the highway department up there, it left quite a void. There's not a lot getting done in this town right now on our roads, which is our prime time to get work done in this town that is not getting done now, in lieu of some paving projects that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, and it's not going to get done.
All right, I honestly think we need to approve it, but I will go along with what? Oh, I'm sorry, Craig.
Little towns like Smithfield, Mercer, don't they share code officers?
I believe so. We've
Why
tried.
isn't that an option?
We've tried many times.
We've tried.
You did?
Yeah.
We've tried with many different towns.
Because there's a new one in Smithfield, and he's doing Norwich, right?
I don't.
If he is, then that means Dave Savage not doing Norwich Walk anymore. Dave was doing Norwich Walk for quite a while.
To my knowledge, is a new one. That might be an option for him.
One of the things that we run into is if you try to partner with a town that's smaller than you, less than 4,000 people, they have different codes for the state. The state has a MUBET code that only affects towns with populations of 4,000 and higher. So we actually have different codes than Anson, Athens, Starks. So for us to share with the smaller towns is a little more complicated. And the towns that are our size or bigger, Pittsfield, Fairfield, and Skowhegan, they all have full-time people. And Skowhegan is the transfer station superintendent as well. Another question?
One more, I'm sorry. Yes, Randy?
If we're gonna come to town meeting anyway, the special town meeting, and you'd like it voted on there, what about creating a fourth article for that?
Well, we've already voted on that, so I don't, can we do that?
You can have one, yeah.
Is that an interest of people? I mean,
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask one more?
Mr. Elias, yes.
Monetary
I
question.
forgot all about you, Mr. Elias. It's so good to see you again.
Jim, what is that code enforcement maintenance man line gonna look like next year at town meeting?
It'll be about 75,000.
And with the code enforcement maintenance, there's also something else in that line?
That line also has a contracted planner.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yep, that comes to our planning board meetings.
Okay.
So if I make a couple more comments. The intention for a code enforcement officer is to grow into the position where they can be the expert to the planning board. Amos wasn't quite there yet for us. Susan was doing a pretty good job in that regard before she left. Bobby did a great job of that. Unfortunately, his health failed him. So if you remember, this board, after we had some issues where we were falling down with the planning board, asked me to get involved. And I had been involved with the planning board, doing their agendas, taking their minutes, preparing their packets, attending their meetings, and acting as kind of that expert liaison in, the fact that we don't have a full-time code officer. Our full-time code officer will step into that role pretty quickly. He'll be attending tomorrow night's planning board meeting. He's got a shoreline zoning application that he's going to present to the board as the expert. So I anticipate that being part of his job. Every other week, attending planning board meetings for a couple of hours and in the office preparing those planning board agendas that I currently do. One of the things that I have always tried to do when I do projects is I've always tried to keep work from being assigned to the highway department. In previous administrations, there was this assumption that highway had the time and the manpower to do a lot of things that the select board asked them to. I'll use the ice rink as an example. It was assumed by the select board that the highway department could build that ice rink. After I saw the fallout of that, I realized when I became town manager, I'm not going to do that. So these playgrounds that were built, that wasn't part of the highway department. Maintaining the playgrounds wasn't part of the highway department. We had a great amount of volunteers that helped with that one out on Main Street. But I can count on one hand the number of volunteers on this playground out here. And I remember asking the highway department, can you help me clear off a lot of the brush and the trees and all that was in there so we could get that? And Glenn said, we just don't have time. And I respect that and I appreciate it. So I came in with my truck and my trailer and I took 4 loads down Ash Street to clear out that area so they could build the playground. And after the first few pieces went in, the Fortin family said, we'd like some more pieces. And they gave more money for that. And so I did it myself, whatever I was making per hour. We need a maintenance person to do maintenance at our 2 playgrounds where people play, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. We need a maintenance person to install new windows at the town office and to work with Bob's Cash Fuel to put in new heating units. We need a maintenance person over at the East Madison Fire Department. That building is not in very good shape. It is not very energy efficient. We need a maintenance person. Mr. Vinziano last year asked that we start a process of looking at all the capital things we need to do. We need a maintenance person to do that. That is why I built this budget this way. And I apologize that it wasn't more clearly stated to you. I'm out of water, Mr. Elias.
All right, I'm gonna ask for us to vote. I hope we support this because I think we need this to happen. And, all right, all those in favor? All right, opposed? All right, motion is denied. All right, so do we have another motion for general government? And can we improve the computers and the IT services?
I'll make a motion that we approve the computer and IT services.
All right, so we have $25,000. All right, I'll second that. Any questions on that? Any questions? All right, all those in favor? All right, all in favor, the motion carries. All right, so I guess we got to talk about where we're going to go with this personnel. I mean, what do we do? What do we do at this point? Any suggestions from the board?
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of like Randy's idea that we add a motion, article to that town meeting. That's the only way we're gonna get this done. So so that we can change it, so that the town understands that it's maintenance and code enforcement. If they approve it, then they approve it. What's that?
Can we do that?
I don't know.
You control the town meeting warrant article, and it's 3 weeks.
We've already
So
voted on it, but as I said,
You control that. Frankly, the other option is that I continue with the commitment that I've made to this individual for a full-time job for this year, and we just overrun this account. That's what will happen. And hopefully we'll save enough money in other areas of general government to be able to not have an override when we get to next year's budget.
Mr. Elias?
I think the problem with doing that is you're gonna have to have a heck of an explanation at the next town meeting, which is gonna make it very difficult to fund that position. You know, you gotta do something. And I think if this person can help Jeff out, if this is all gonna be allowed, which is, you're gonna have to have a job description made out, I guess I don't have a problem with it.
Of approving that?
Right, and this gentleman's right, if you took it to the special town meeting, they already approved the code enforcement officer. You just gotta let them approve the maintenance person, and basically it's all the same pay. The town gave you $52,750. They don't know that the maintenance man is in there, right? The only thing that is, they don't know it's a full-time position either. So I think you need to take that to the town, you know, taking it to the town meeting would get everybody off the hook.
So we're talking about adding Article 4?
You could add an Article 4 that would allow the town to create the position of code enforcement maintenance person
For $25,000.
and authorize the select board to carry forward the $25,000.
We would go along with that?
I would rather see it two separate entities, Tim, not slash.
So you want
You got a code enforcement and you got a maintenance
You
man.
want to fill 2 part-time positions then?
That's the way I would look at it. I'm not comfortable with the slash.
Why?
Let him do both jobs.
But pay him part-time and different wages for each job?
Yes. What's wrong with that?
It's difficult to find somebody that's willing to work for that.
You already got him.
I've already committed to him an hourly wage at 40 hours a week for the job. And if you were to hire a contractor to come in and put some windows in for you, what do you think their hourly rate's gonna be?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that, Tim. Like I said, the only point that I have here is the way it went to town meeting.
Okay.
All right? That's the only point. The only thing that went to town meeting was a code enforcement officer. All of a sudden, we have got something that the town meeting did not vote on.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable with that. How do I answer a citizen out here when he asks me that question? How come we got this when you brought it to town meeting and it wasn't there? How do I answer that? That's my only concern. I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into this thing. I'm just saying, you know, you've got to draw the line here. I'm uncomfortable of responding to the people out here in the town if they ask me that question. What do you want me to say? Well, that was the town manager's idea, I didn't know anything about it. I can't say that either, Tim. That's my only thing, right there. That is it. If you want to go up here on a special town meeting and you want to put another article in there for a maintenance man, go for it. But I'm uncomfortable the way it is right now. And that's my thing.
Article 5, maintenance man, you can carry forward from general government. I mean, it's gotta be worded differently, but Article 4, would we?
You've got 2 different jobs here.
Okay, would we support that? So I guess we don't have to mention code enforcement, but a maintenance person, right? Because we already have code enforcement.
That's right. You've already voted
So
on
it's
code
only maintenance
enforcement.
the only maintenance that is left.
Maintenance is the only thing that's left.
Randy?
So I guess my question is, part of that article we voted on included 14,000 for health insurance. Do you give full-time benefits to part-time workers?
That's true. Well, with both of those together, it'd be a full-time worker, correct?
Would it?
Well, it all depends on how they're hired. Right now, the code officer is hired in a full-time position with benefits. If we were to split those and create a 20-hour-a-week code officer and a 20-hour-a-week position, then you'd have two part-time positions. Even if the same person did them, I don't think they'd be eligible
They
for
wouldn't be eligible
health
because their
insurance.
position isn't over the state limit.
Yeah,
for
32 or
full-time.
36, yeah.
Mr. Elias?
I was just gonna say, if you put an article on there, Mr. Curtis is gonna have to go up there and explain his boo-boos to the board.
Yeah.
And explain that this person, code enforcement / maintenance, is a full-time position that we're creating, okay, with benefits. I think that needs to be done. That way, the board members, like Mr. Moody, are not gonna have to answer questions out on the street, because, and I think Mr. Curtis is gonna have to give them a job description. You got a job description, code enforcement, maintenance man, what that maintenance guy's gonna do. If he can help out the road department, that'd be great. And if they, once they learn all of that stuff, I don't think you're gonna have a problem. Just my point, that's all.
So call it code enforcement, maintenance.
You can do anything you want at town meeting.
Okay.
It's the townspeople that are gonna say yay to nay.
Right, but we're gonna make it a full-time job. So it's gotta be
It's a
code.
full-time job right now. You got code enforcement, full-time job.
Right.
That money says it's full-time,
Okay.
right? But you need to let them know it's a full-time position.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna get two part-time people.
We haven't so far, so I don't know why all of a sudden we think we're going to. Yes.
I agree with Mr. Elias there. That basically this warrant is correcting or clarifying the warrant from the town meeting that the town voted on. That's basically what this is, a clarification.
Okay.
That's the way I perceive it, and
What-
I'm hoping the
Is the
town
board
will
going to
too.
support taking it to town meeting? Mr. Moody?
That's the only way you're gonna get it clarified.
Okay, so we'll look for a motion to add Article 4 to the special town meeting warrant for August 29th. And how are we gonna say it? To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to,
See if the board will be authorized to fund a full-time position for code enforcement facilities maintenance, utilizing $25,000 of carry forward from general government.
okay. All right, can somebody make that a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second? I'll second it so we can talk about it. Mr. Gopian?
Yeah, now, what was that? Maintenance, just not a maintenance person so he could drive the truck or whatever, or plow?
It's
if he
code
had to?
enforcement / maintenance.
Maintenance, right?
It's a facilities maintenance.
Facility?
That's the job title.
Yeah. Facility would sound like more like a building or something like this. It wouldn't be out driving a snowplow.
That's completely up to the road commissioner, not to me. And so at this point, we have not entertained that as an idea. So the job description simply says that the facilities maintenance person will work with the road commissioner on certain highway-related jobs, but there's nothing specific about plowing routes or sidewalk plows or anything like that. And I wouldn't recommend that. I'd say that would have to come from the road commissioner. It's an interesting idea.
Any other questions?
It's not something we're putting into the warrant.
Mr. Moody?
So that would mean if Mr. Lightbody isn't plowing sidewalks, the road commissioner could give you a call and say, I'd like to have this maintenance man for X number of hours plowing sidewalks.
That's completely up to the road commissioner. I would not be opposed to it.
Mr. Manta.
I would like to see the road commissioner call the town manager at 2:30 in the morning to call this guy and say, we want you to plow sidewalks.
It might not work all that well.
Yeah, wouldn't go over very well. I think the rumors are is this guy doesn't want to be bothered with that stuff.
All right, all those in favor of going to the town meeting? All in favor? Opposed? Looks like that's dead. All right, so let's move on. Library. Building.
So the library is, if you look at the yellow number, they're proposing $6,500 for carry forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the carry forward for the library at $6,500.
Second.
Okay, so why is it?
That's my mistake. That top line should be
65.
Yeah, it should be 65.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the library carry over $6,500. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, so there's capital on the bottom.
Yeah, the last section, these are all the capital figures that we always carry forward because we have to pay for trucks. We have to use all that we can for paving. And then, of course, the fire truck amount of 150 is in there. So that's a full amount for capital of 329, 353.05.
I'll make a motion of capital of 329, 353.05.
Second that.
All right, a motion and a second to carry forward $329,353.05 for the capital as in each category as written. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, so let's move over to, I believe that's it on that.
Yep.
Review matching grant applications.
So in your packet, you should have got the spreadsheet that looks like this, outlines a summary of all 13 applications. And then I put together 3 pages of summaries on each application. Now, keeping in mind that town meeting authorized $35,000 only, that meant we could not completely give everyone what they asked for. So on that spreadsheet are my recommendations. You're certainly willing, able to do whatever you'd like. But Northeast Planning, that's Steve Dean's building on Main Street, he's doing some inside and outside repairs. As you saw in the summary, he'd like to get people to come through his rear entrance off of Rennie's parking lot so that he frees up spaces out front. In the next building over at 57 Main Street, Courtney Cowan is renting that space. That used to be K-Tronics. And so now she's paying for her own renovations, including a new awning and lettering of the windows. Ken and Bonnie Moore Farms out on River Road, they do a lot of their produce as a donation to the People Who Care food cupboard. They like to update their greenhouse and put a rainwater retention system in. Charlie and Sons, he's got a project before the planning board to build a 5,000 square foot building. He's asking for a grant to help with that project. Sackett and Brake, they're doing a first floor window replacement out at their property on Lakewood Road. And so on that first page, I have recommended funding for the amounts that they requested. Now on the next page, you'll notice with Seem So Perfect, that's the former Fabric Garden under new ownership now. She'd like to put up a new sign and buy 8 sewing machines for her classroom. She'd also like to spend some money to buy inventory. I kind of felt with the limited money we had, she asked for a $5,000 grant. I'm recommending $3,750. That covers half the cost of the sign and the new sewing machines, but not the inventory. The American Legion asked for a small amount of money to have their property surveyed. While I think it's a good idea, I don't think it kind of meets the criteria of this grant, so I did not recommend that one to be funded. Wicked Lettuce received a grant back in 2019 to paint that building. They'd like to do some interior ceiling work and exterior window boxes. So I recommended what they asked for, which is $31.75. Now, the last page includes five companies that just got grants in the last cycle. And they all received at least, well, 4 of them received at least $5,000. So what my recommendation was is when you add up the first 2 pages, the money that's left, I would split accordingly amongst the last 5 since they just got grants. So that's my recommendations. That's what I've done. It kind of fits that $35,000 amount. I'll take any questions the board might have.
Here we go.
I have one, on 57 Main Street. I thought if you owned the building on Main Street, you could only do one building.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything in writing about that. There's multiple businesses that are using both sides of it.
Right.
But I don't think we have anything in the grant application. I may be wrong. I don't think we have any application that's against that. You have 2 separate businesses paying out of their pocket.
Well, I remember that I got no because you can't do that. Because I wasn't running both businesses, that's for sure. And I was told no one time on that. So I'm just wondering if that's where it's gonna be, fine. I'm just questioning if that's all.
Yeah.
All right, would you like to do this all together as the town manager recommended, or do we want to go one at a time? Whatever you want to make for a motion. Anybody?
What's the easiest now?
Whichever one you like to do, Mr. Mooney.
I mean, what's the easiest for the town? I mean,
If we just say we're gonna.
you do it all at once, or do you,
All at once, Mooney.
All right.
all at once?
Yep.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second to accept the town manager's recommendations for our 2022 matching grants. And I'm not gonna, as written on the paper. Any other questions? Mr. Manager?
Some of these I just don't agree with, but if you guys wanna do them, we'll go ahead.
Which ones don't you agree with?
I go more in favor with fixing the fronts of buildings, not out behind. I would even go for replacing windows at like Sackett and Brake. Main Medicare, I think that's new, I'd go for that. Charlie and Son spending a lot of money, I'd go with that. The rest of them I don't get too excited about. It's only my opinion.
All right, our motion is to accept all of them as recommended by the town manager. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? 4 opposed? All right, 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Mr. Manager is opposed. All right. Motion carries. Concerns, Mr. Moody?
Done, sir.
Mr. Manager?
Just, if, going for the town manager, if you go to the big code book, and it says that a department head knowingly overspends a line, that it comes out of his pocket, or if the board overspends town meeting, can you look that up for me? That it would come out of the board's pocket?
Yeah.
I go online, but it just takes me all over the place.
All right.
You got it, Trudeau?
I don't think so.
I can do that.
Anything else, Mr. Manager?
No, that's it.
Mrs. Dwyer? Mr. Gopi?
I got a couple. Cemeteries, I guess we're not gonna do those this year.
How do you mean?
Cemeteries,
Like repair work?
yeah, you know, that money we put aside, that 10,000,
We did. we put that money aside, but
Right,
I
that
know
was
she
gonna
said.
be till next spring.
Oh,
Get
next spring?
quotes, get everything ready to present for next year.
Okay. All right, and the other one, Go Lab and daycare, have you done anything with that yet, about in here?
I saw an email this past week. There's some work going on behind the scenes to get a site plan developed, if you want to call it that. So, but when we get to that point, I'll certainly bring it to the board.
Okay, was that for me?
I had one, but I forgot. Just so I forgot.
See? That's why I write mine down.
First stage, Al.
No kidding. All right, citizens' concerns. Mr. Elias.
How can I drag this out anymore?
No kidding, we haven't had a meeting past 7:30 in the last.
I have no.
Come on, John, another half hour, 9 o'clock.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:29.